For the first time in many years, the forthcoming governorship elections appears unpredictable. This is as some state governors seeking re-election or who have positioned their preferred successors are in a panic mode ahead of the March 18 governorship elections. Now, should the trend which played out in the February 25th presidential election repeat itself in the gubernatorial election, some state governors may not get a second term or produce their successors. Now, a probability breeding fear and anxiety in some of them. Now, right here in the studio, we have Jide Ojo and Emmanuel Njoku, who were observers in the just concluded presidential and National Assembly elections, here with us in the studio, and they're both joining us to talk about this particular issue. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, good morning, gentlemen. Jide Ojo, let me start with you. We just heard the intro that was actually read, and we saw what happened in the presidential elections. Some state governors, sitting state governors, actually lost their bids to return to the Senate. Some of them were not able to deliver their states for their parties and all that. And now that's the anxiety that's been bred for the governorship election. Do you think it is right to actually feel that particular anxiety? Judging by what
very apt, very right. I've said time and again, politics is a game of intrigues. Politics is not mathematics. It's like football. Yesterday, Man U struggled to 0-0 with Southampton, which is a battle. I mean, it tells you. Look at each time I watch Premiership, I just those who are gambling, I don't know how they manage to gamble, because the game that you are already giving, this is a top four, now this is top four, this is a bottom, so you just give it to the top four. That this game, but that is the nature and character of politics. You never can. I mean, I was studying the outcome of the senatorial election in Abia. 3 different parties produced the 3 senators, but did you know that the party that won overall is even different
from the ones that produced the senators?
Yes. So you find out that voters are not very sophisticated. No, in Abia, Labour has won, APC has won, APGA has won. Then Labour won overall. Yes. So what I'm saying is that in an election where you got 3 ballots simultaneously, it's not like you voted at different times. So somebody is able to identify APGA and identify Labour for different positions. Somebody is able to identify APC and Labour and APGA for different positions. It tells you that underrate Nigerian voters at your own peril. Look at the table shaking situation in Lagos. That a relatively unknown quantity is giving the governor so much headache that he has turned to hairdresser, turned to evangelist. He's not going everywhere on the streets laughing, shaking, and you wonder, these are the same people that takes voters for granted. You will never see them on the street. They do the rallies, they invite top-rated musicians, and then they dance for 3 hours, speak for 30 minutes, and everybody disperse. Now they are going door to door. Now they are going church to church. They are going mosque to mosque. They are talking to opinion molders. They are not. So everybody, I mean, at the last count, the senatorial upset was seven state governors losing out. 7. It's unprecedented. In 2019, we were talking about 3 or 4. But even Dan Kwambo that lost in 2019 has won his senatorial election now. Meanwhile, he lost as a sitting governor in 2019. So you find that it's not curious. It's not unprecedented. It just goes to show that if you fail to perform, you'll be punished. whether as a godfather, whether as an incumbent, it confers no undue advantage on you again. It depends on the mood of the people. And you could see this obedient revolution and the Kwankwasia revolution that has put the 2023 election in a different geographical map. So much so that, look at Kwankwasia, they just held down Kano. They don't care. In neighboring Jigawa, you would think that NNPP does not exist. But this is the same state that was split into two. You will have thought that the Kwankwasia movement will spread to Kaduna, to Jigawa. But it has no impact in others. But the man held down Kano. That out of 1.49 million votes that NNPP has in this presidential election, 997,000 of it came from just Kano. And you can see the obedient movement. People who have no money to campaign were just cruising on the name of Peter Obi to win election. So it's good for our democracy, and it shows that though severe attempts have been made to discredit the February 25 election, it has produced a lot of pluses, and it has shown the trend on how voters behavior, that voters are not as dull, are not as uninitiated as many of us may want to give them. They are very sophisticated. Even where you are ready to buy votes, they can collect your money and still not vote for you. So money has become not the primary consideration to winning votes. It has become secondary. That money comes, and I mean, look at Benue. Benue, a reverend father that is almost unknown in politics, resigned his ministerial work and went into politics, and is turning the entire place upside down. So it is a cause for worry for politicians, but not a cause for worry for me as a political observer. I think it's a welcome development.
All right, so Mr. Emmanuel, let's talk about the postponement of the elections from last week to this week. Now, a lot of people seem to be disappointed at the rescheduling. Would you say this rescheduling is a mistake or a blessing in disguise?
So let me ask you this. Would it have even been better if INEC felt that the February 25th election, they will have challenges with deployment, and they rescheduled it to give a perfect election, than going ahead to do it on the 25th February and having that level of late deployment, which made us see elections late into the midnight, which caused a lot of young people not to be able to vote, which caused a lot of voter disenfranchisement, which caused a lot of pregnant women, people with disability, elderly people go home and couldn't vote, which also reduced the voting hours. Suppose 6 hours voting hours that Nigerians are supposed to have to vote. So we saw a lot of polling units where polls started by 3, and by 7, because there was no power or no light, they had to close, meaning that they voted for only 3-4 hours, not minding that there were still people on the queue. So my point is, INEC has the powers to postpone election. It is completely in the power of INEC to set the date and sequence of our elections. So if INEC feels for issues of reconfiguring the beavers or for whatever issue they need to postpone the election, they are within their rights to postpone the election. What is important is giving us a good election. And I think, and I support INEC in that election postponement, because the way it was going, we cannot as a country afford to have another bungled election. 25th election has its challenges. But however, I can say, because we observed the election and we saw the pattern of the election, and I can say that this is probably one of the cleanest elections we've had in the history of Nigeria. Well, no, I won't say history of Nigeria, let me say since 1999, because that's the much I know. So if I say history of Nigeria, I wasn't even voting as at then. So let me come back to 1999 till date. Why do I say this? In our election process, where the major gaps are, starts from one, the party primaries. Then election day process, the biggest gap in our process has always been the part where we did manual accreditation and where you bring in the incidence form. That is where the fraud happens. That was tied at the point of introducing the beavers, which ensures biometric accreditation. That way we'll start seeing the real numbers. And we saw that in the election. Before, you see places like Kano putting out 4 million votes. Kaduna boasted of 2-3 million votes. The KKK states, Lagos State with close to 7 million registered voters, we'll expect they're going to bring up 4 million votes. But what's the number of votes that came out? Typically, what happens in the past is that after elections happen, the political parties and these people now look at 15% voter turnout is probably what they see, but there are lots of close to 85% ballot papers. They go ahead and do manual tick all the names on the voter register and come up with very fictitious wrong numbers to show numbers. But in this election, because of beavers, that gap was tied. Now the biggest challenge in our process again is at the point of result handling and collation. And the worst of this happens at the first level of collation, beyond the polling unit. When you go to the registration area center, collation center, that is where a lot of fraud happens. Now, the introduction of the IREV was supposed to bring transparency to that fraud that happens at the collation center, which is what the IREV has introduced, where the presiding officer is supposed to transmit results from the polling unit. Now, what that is supposed to serve is, as a presiding officer, when I finish at the polling unit and I transmit, by the time the big politicians in that space are putting a gun on the head of the local government collation officer, the person simply will tell them that I can't do anything. These results have already been uploaded. They're already on the INEC server. Everybody is seeing this. That is also the major gap in our result handling. But in that part, I would say that INEC missed it in that part, especially in the presidential election. All that delay that we had in results coming in created the gap. And the politicians, being who they are, they saw an opportunity there which allowed them to be able to, in some places and in some cases, alter results and change numbers. But however, even in their trying to change numbers, like we've seen in some of the results on the IREV, they still maintained within the number of accredited voters. So it's not like business as usual, where you change numbers, only 200 persons voted, but you bring out results showing that 800 persons voted. So even in cases where they try to alter this process, we're able to still maintain. But that's for the presidential. Now, if you look at like my guy here, Jude said, if you look at the results that came out across the country, in the National Assembly, I understand that in the Senate, that 70% of the senators-elect are new senators that are coming into office. And you mentioned something about the governors. In the past, typically, when you see sitting governors running for Senate, it's a one-way victory for them because of the power to be able to influence and, doctor results. But in 2019, you are trying to say that 6 sitting governors, contested for office. Only one person lost in that 2019 election out of the, I think it's Ajimobi or so that lost the election.
Actually.
Now, in this 2023 election, I think about 10 governors or 9 governors ran for Senate. Only 2 sitting governors, only 2 of them were able to succeed. The Ebonyi State Governor, Dave Umahi, and Niger State, Sani Bello.
Okay, Sani Bello.
These are the 2 governors. The remaining 9, who typically you would think will win election, the remaining 7 lost election. Of the former governors and sitting governors in this election, about 28 of them contested for Senate, which is why we've been saying Senate is going to be a retirement home for our governors. 28 of them contested for this election. Typically, if it was elections as usual, we've seen before, probably all of them would have won. But in this election, we saw only 10 of them win. 18 of them lost. So this speaks to the progress we've made in our electoral process with the introduction of the beavers as it is. So for me, I am happy that INEC postponed this election. So there won't be any excuses because INEC, in not providing that IREV that is supposed to bring the transparency, lost a chance, missed an opportunity in raising the bar in our process. A lot of first-time voters, not people that just turned 18 years. I know a lot of colleagues who have never voted, but they all voted in this election because the electoral 2022 and the innovations of INEC promised that votes will count. People mostly in their middle class, upper class, the very educated ones, the elites, the urban city dwellers, who don't usually vote a lot, all of them voted because there was an assurance that your vote will count. And that's why they voted. So for me, I felt bad that INEC took Nigerians to this level. But at the point when you shut that door that was supposed to bring transparency so that people can see it and participate and be part of the process, they missed that opportunity. So I wish and I pray that they have postponed the election that they will get it right in their deployment. That election, you don't start election by 3 p.m. How do you do that? Because in the budget and the costing of election polling unit, there is no cost for generators, there is no budget for voting in the night power, and that's why election starts by 8:30. So no matter how you stretch it with number of people on the queue after 2:30, you will still finish it within when there is still daytime. So we are hoping that the mistakes and the error, if it is cash, even though CBN said they gave INEC all the cash they needed, we hope that they sort it out. If it is about the drivers, the NURT drivers who are supposed to take materials to polling units, we understand that some of them refuse to sleep at the registration area centers, which is supposed to be the norm. And some of them came very late. So whatever issues it is, even with the beavers, we are trusting INEC, like we've always trusted INEC, that they will take advantage of this election and make it very smooth, from deployment to materials being complete to every process, security personnel doing their own part, then more importantly, Nigerians seeing the results like we saw in Ekiti 2020 governorship election and our state governorship election. That is what we expect of INEC. So moving the election to this 18th, for me, is a good thing, if that will give us a very clean election.
All right. Well, a clean election is all we're actually hoping for. So, Jide Ojo, let me come to you now. Yeah, we talked of one of the centerpieces of this election process is the electronic transmission of results. INEC made a very big deal about it in the run-up to the presidential election, and unfortunately, right now, it is proving to be their Achilles heel when it comes to the February 25th elections. We're hearing them now beating those same drums. Are they still boxing themselves into a corner? What happens in a situation whereby with the same thing that happened on February 25th happens again?
God forbid, God forbid bad thing. I just hope it won't happen. I mean, they said thunder doesn't strike at the same spot twice. I just hope so. I want to give INEC benefit of doubt, because bungling this March 18 election would just make, I mean, in 2027, people will just say, don't even conduct election. Let's just do communal selection. Okay, Adia, you go out of assembly, and you go. We'll just settle it among ourselves. Because, see, shall I shock you? This election has cost Nigeria 478.6 billion naira. 478.6, and I'm saying this authoritatively. In 2022 budget, they got 305 billion. In 2023 budget, and this is a document I'm in possession of, not hearsay, the statutory transfer to INEC from 2023 budget is 173.6 billion. So if you have close to $500 billion to conduct an election, I read in December 15, 2022, the Punch newspaper said INEC voted 117 billion for security of its cyberspace, portal, website, database, and all of that. 117 billion. These are verifiable figures. So, what excuses have you got? For me, this has gone beyond the, please forgive us. We never meant to. I mean, there should have been different scenarios built. That's why people are so disenchanted that INEC's excuses was becoming very hollow. Because if you've voted 117 billion for security of your cyber space, that means you can even bring the best cyber security experts to help you with your systems. Mm-hmm. So if money wasn't the issue, because I mean, Imad talked about INEC, did you know that why many of us stuck out our neck for INEC was because, one, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu is the only INEC chairman that have gotten reappointment. So experience wasn't a deficit. He is not a rookie. He has conducted one election previous. So, and this is our 7th. So institutional memory is there. Then you have a legal framework electoral 2022 that says what's it called? Section 3 sub 3, saying that the funds for the election should be released a year to that election, 1 year to that election. So you got 305 billion in 2022 budget. You did all your procurement. There was no issue of cash deficit as we had in 2019 when the president submitted the budget of 242 billion to the National Assembly in June of 2018 when election was supposed to be in February 2019. In which case, by the time the Bukola Saraki led the Ninth Assembly, they just received the document, sent it to the Committee on INEC and Electoral Matters, and went on annual recess for 3 months. They came back in September, they passed the budget, and then they start looking for where to get the money. So the National Assembly passed the 242 billion, 189 billion for INEC, and 53 billion for security. And then they said, okay, we've passed this, but where are we sourcing the money? So the president said, we are taking this money from your constituency president. No. Let's take it from MDA. All of these arguments did not arise in 2023. I gave that background so you know where we are coming from. So INEC chairman is not a rookie. He has conducted over almost 200 elections, from general to by-elections between 2019 and 2020. So what went wrong? He has not come out frontally, frankly, to tell us exactly how the 2023 February 25 election was bungled. Even yesterday, when Barrister Festus Okoye Esquire, we are not to call them barrister, when he was speaking on his sister TV station, he just said, we know what happened, and we will do everything to prevent a reoccurrence. Wow. What happened? Nigerians want to know exactly what happened. Because that day, I remember they said they arrested some people at Green Street in Matama who allegedly fiddled with the porter. But INEC debunked it and said, no, it's a rumor. So if your system was hacked, let us know. If it was not hacked, if it's an internal sabotage, if it's external, that will have made Nigeria to understand better. But now, you are giving us reassurance, and we have decided to give you benefit of doubt. But I have cautious optimism. Cautious optimism because, you know, me, I've been voting since 1999. But first-time voter, my own children who are turning 18, who just want to experience this, I don't want it to be a nasty experience for them. So when you gave us your words, that election, remember, Ibrahim, this is the first time INEC will start general election at 8:30, official hour. It has always been 8 to 2. So over the off-cycle election, I think the Osun, they discovered that they were not getting their logistics right. So they decided to say, and this does not need them going to National Assembly or altering any constitution or electoral. This, I will expect that if INEC knows that this persistent challenge of logistics will still rear its ugly head on March 18, let us start at 10. And end by 4. That's still 6 hours, isn't it? So that you know, if your drivers refuse to sleep at rack, even if they come 5 a.m., you can still get your distribution. And if you feel 10 a.m. is too much of a time to start 9. There is no law. It's administrative. Determine the time of election is administrative. INEC has within its power to even say that this election will hold for 8 hours. So all of this advantage, I thought INEC should take of it. But to just be very economical with the truth, to not want to open up to the public, and much as I won't throw the baby with the bathwater, but as I've said on several media platforms, this February 25th election, in spite of the pluses that we have with it, in spite of the substantial compliance that comes with it, it's like somebody that an A student that you know this guy is very brilliant, so you are expecting him to have A in a subject and now score C. C is not a failure. You know, it will make you to have an extra year. But C is different from A that you are. So you didn't even come to B. You now came to C. That is the way I will characterize the February 25th. So I will expect that INEC they came out on the upper Saturday. After their review, they say, oh, a number of things will be done differently, and there are some of their staff that have been identified as having compromised, and that they should not be allowed to participate in this current one. They should do a refresher training. They should do. Where is the time to do all of that? And you know, the greatest fear I have, Malam Aja, is that INEC does not seem to be in control of its field officers. Many of them have partisan interest as against the provision of Section 8 sub 2, which says that no INEC official should be a member of a party. But we had on good authority that some political party chieftains, lobbied to get their party members into the ad hoc staff. And INEC had to recruit 1.4 million. Did they do any background check to know whether these people are APC loyalists or PDP or Labour Party loyalists? So you have 1.4 million ad hoc staff that you recruited. Your own staff are just 16,500. So you have people. The society has dumped a lot of people on you whom you do not know their background. You don't know their interest. And we know that there is no way an election can be bungled without those external resources, like the core members, the students of tertiary institutions, even the NURTW people, which we know. Remember that Labour Party went to court in Lagos to say that MC Oluomo must not participate in the distribution of election materials because he is partisan. Everybody knows of his partisanship.
All right. Let's come back to you, Mr. Emmanuel. Now, with the assurances that INEC has actually given Nigerians about, the governorship elections going to be free, fair, and credible, do you think this has actually instilled confidence in the voters?
Let me say this: we're only going to trust INEC. Because they are given an assurance. So if you follow the pattern of elections, INEC will always give that assurance. Even way back as at 2007, Morris, who gave the same and gave all this assurance, So we've seen INEC chairman back to back, INEC give this assurance. So we're going to trust INEC to follow the Electoral Act, to implement the Electoral Act as is clearly stated. We're also going to trust INEC to do the needful. And to add to what Mayoga said and what you asked, if INEC is putting themselves in a tight corner, INEC saying that they are going to transmit results from polling units, for me, is not an option. It's not a choice. The Electoral Act, Section 60, sub 5, clearly stipulates that the presiding officers shall transfer, results from their polling unit in a way prescribed by INEC. Now, the INEC guidelines, clause 38, clearly stated that the presiding officer shall electronically transmit results from polling units. So it's not for INEC to choose if they will transmit or if they will not transmit. All they need to do is to get their act right, because they will do the needful. I saw the judgment from the Supreme Court, talking about Section 52, not Supreme Court, rather, the Court of Appeal, talking about Section 52, and completely ignoring Section 60, sub 5, the electoral guideline, and Section 64, subsection 4A and B. And I'm wondering how come they are ignoring this very important part of. See, let me tell you, if you notice this 25th election, the international community, we had over close to 7 or 8 past presidents of different countries. the whole international community, they were all interested in this election because we have the biggest democracy in Africa. I think it was the fourth or fifth biggest democracy in the world. The whole world was interested to see that massive voter register, averaging 93.4 million people. Germany, as much as they had, the whole population of Germany is not even up to 85 million. Not their electorate. The population from 0 to 100 days, people living in Germany. So the whole world is interested to see. And that's why there was a lot of disappointment from both local observers and international observers. So INEC doesn't have a choice than to transmit results from polling units. INEC also doesn't have a choice, as stipulated in Section 65 of the Electoral Act, sub 5, where it states that the collation officer cannot collate and announce results till he must have confirmed that the results brought in are the same, or if there's a discrepancy, that the one that was transmitted electronically supersedes this. So I don't see any space for INEC. So for me, as a citizen, I only have one vote. Sadly, I will not even be voting because I live here in Abuja, because there won't be any election. But for citizens across the country, they must trust INEC with what they've said. And if you look at the election, look at the composition of National Assembly, even the APC, the ruling party, doesn't have the 2/3. Do they even have up to 50% of the votes? I don't. Up to 50%?
Yeah. 51, at least the one that has been released, 51 senators. Although that's not up to half. But
but when you look at the Senate and the House of Reps, you will see close to 8 political parties make
in House of Reps, 7 in Senate
make up the whole. So it means that even the APC as the majority cannot by themselves, make resolutions. They must find a way to have all the political parties involved. So what this means is, for the people who think that their votes didn't count, they should look at the House of Rep and the senatorial elections and look at how many sitting governors that failed to be re-elected, and look at the number of new entrants into the space that are coming to the National Assembly. When you look at all of this election is even the most important election. Like you hear people say that this is local. This is the part where everybody needs to go out and trust INEC. And in fact, people that didn't vote need to even come out more this time to vote, because most of the laws that affect people the most, comes from your state legislatures. The closest government to the people is your local government and your state government. So these are people that decide mostly what happens to you. The state civil servants in those states, they get paid or they don't get paid, is not the president's responsibility. It is the state responsibilities. Most of the primary school, the education in that state is in the hands of mostly the state government. So this election is very important. And I would expect Nigerians to, in as much as they have these displeasures and these disappointments in INEC handling the IREV, I am giving INEC that benefit of doubt, knowing how important, knowing how much they've raised the awareness of Nigerians to the point of believing that their votes count. This is INEC's chance at proving to Nigerians that votes will count. So I am trusting that they will deliver in this election. I am hoping, and I'm calling on every Nigerian as well to trust and come out more than they even did in the last election and elect their leaders. Because one thing I believe with this election, why I say this election has brought a lot of change to our political culture, is the game has changed. Automatically, like Jide said, it's now citizens who are either rewarding or punishing their political leaders, like we've seen.
As it should be.
Like as it should be. Do you understand? Okay. So I would expect us to build on what we've seen. It's a process, and we are getting better. We're trusting that the president-elect, when he gets into power, will also, after every election, we'll look at the gaps, and that is what influences and informs electoral reforms. That will even get better than what we already have. So I will strengthen this democracy and strengthen our electoral process.
All right. So we should trust the process, and we should trust INEC.
Yes.
Well, we hope we get the best out of this governorship election, and we'll be having a different discussion after it. All right. Emmanuel Njoku, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Jide, you're always a pleasure having you on the program.
My pleasure too.